Millions of Australians are preparing to vote in a general election, which is widely expected to end 6 years of government by the Labour Party. Prime Minister Kevin Rudd has faced stiff competition from opposition leader Tony Abbott, whose Liberal National Coalition is favoured to win. The rivals are split on how to tackle Australia's budget deficit, but both have pledged tough action to stop asylum seekers arriving by boat. All citizens over 18 must vote by law. Mr Rudd called the election after ousting Julia Gillard in a leadership challenge in June, amid dismal polling figures. Ms Gillard had herself ousted Mr Rudd as Prime Minister in 2010. Labour initially saw its figures improve significantly, but in recent weeks Mr Abbott has again broadened the gap. He has enjoyed the strident support of Rupert Murdoch's newspapers, and remains ahead in the opinion polls. The two leading candidates made their final push on the campaign trail on Friday, with Mr Rudd appealing to undecided voters, saying they could close the gap. Mr Rudd was campaigning in the New South Wales Central Coast, while Mr Abbott spoke at a guitar factory in Melbourne. Mr Rudd emphasised the Labour government's economic record and said his priority was jobs, more jobs and jobs, health, hospitals and broadband, and to keep support for cost of living pressures. Mr Abbott said the coalition would end the waste, stop the boats, and build roads of the 21st century. He also warned voters against another hung parliament, and a weak and divided Labour Green government. The only way to have a new way is to choose a new government, he said. The economy has been a central issue to both campaigns. The next leader will be charged with managing the transition as the mining and resources boom subsides, amid slowing demand for China and slumping commodity prices. Both parties have announced tough asylum policies to stem the number of people reaching Australia's shores by boat, an apparent cause of anxiety in some crucial swinging electorates. Under a Labour plan, asylum seekers arriving by boat will be sent to Papua New Guinea for processing, and resettled there if found to be refugees. Mr Abbott, meanwhile, says he will appoint a military commander to lead operations tackling people smugglers, and that asylum seekers granted refugee status would be limited to temporary renewable visas. Both policies have been criticized by refugee rights groups. The UN has described Mr Rudd's policy as troubling, while Greens Senator Sarah Hanson-Young described the coalition's policy as cruelty and punishment for the sake of Tony Abbott looking tough. Mr Abbott has also promised to repeal the government's unpopular carbon tax, a policy which has marked Australia as a world leader on climate change legislation in the past 3 years. More than 14 million people are expected to vote in Saturday's election. Analysts say that voters are ready to reject the minority government and its carbon pricing, mining tax, and fibre optic broadband network, in favour of smaller government, reduced debt, and a new domestic focus.